Karen slapped a royal guard, confident she would get away with it. But the consequences of her arrogance shocked the crowd and served as a lesson for everyone. A sunny morning. In central London. Buckingham Palace. Surrounded by majestic wrought iron gates, towers, as a silent reminder of royal traditions that have endured for centuries. The cobblestone beneath the tourists' feet sparkles. In the sunlight, reflecting the endless flow of visitors scurrying about like ants in their chaotic rhythm. At the entrance stands a guard. He's about 30, fair-skinned, with a hint of rosiness brought on by the winter chill. His impeccably pressed red uniform seems to declare to the world, "I'm not here for show." A black bearskin hat sits stately on his head, emphasizing his role and composure. His eyes are fixed forward, motionless like a statue. Yet we understand, beneath that stoicism is a man whose nerves are stretched like a taut string, enduring the ceaseless madness of tourism, day after day. Crowds gather around the barriers. Cameras click, smartphones flash. Suddenly, a loud, annoying voice cuts through the noise. "Hey, you, hat guy, why aren't you smiling? Entertain us. We didn't travel all this way for nothing." All eyes turn to the source of the outburst. Karen. Oh, yes, a classic Karen. She looks about 40, with rosy cheeks and a facial expression that practically screams, "The world revolves around me." She's wearing a bright pink dress, struggling to contain her figure. One hand holds an oversized latte cup, while the other flails dramatically, demanding attention. Karen strides toward the guard, her loud laughter echoing across the square. Tourists exchange glances. Some start filming her on their phones. After all, who would want to miss a scandal? And with a royal guard, no less. That's viral content gold. She gets so close that the air fills with the sharp scent of her perfume, cheap, overpowering, and reminiscent of a bargain bin purchase. Her eyes glitter with brazen self-satisfaction. "Come on," she continues, leaning forward slightly. "I spent a lot of money to come here. The least you can do is prove you're human." The guard remains motionless, as if she doesn't exist. His calm gaze shows no hint of irritation or reaction. He says nothing. His job is to say nothing. But this only fuels Karen's determination. She steps back, her face lighting up with a familiar look, the look of someone who won't stop until they get their way, no matter how ridiculous they appear. "Well then," she says, her voice louder now, drawing the crowd's attention. "Let's see how tough you really are." The crowd around Buckingham Palace grows denser. Smartphone cameras are trained on Karen, who, sensing the thrill of everyone's attention, amplifies her performance. Coins jingle in her hands. She tosses them onto the cobblestones in front of the guard, her face radiating a cruel smirk. "Well, hat guy, will you react to some spare change?" She taunts, casting a look over her shoulder at the crowd, hoping for approval. The coins scatter across the stones, a few bouncing off the guard's boots. He stays motionless, his steady gaze fixed ahead, seemingly unshaken. But inside, perhaps something is stretching tight, like a wound spring ready to snap. Karen, frustrated by his lack of reaction, smirks again. Her expression now shows not just disappointment, but a twisted determination. It's the kind of look everyone recognizes from those who insist on proving their superiority, even as they embarrass themselves. She reaches into her bag, a huge, gaudy red purse glittering with cheap sequins, and waves it in front of the guard's face. Her laughter rings out more like a crow's caw than anything human. "Come on, Stone Man, are you even alive? Maybe this bag will wake you up." The crowd murmurs at first, then begins to chuckle. Someone calls out, "Hey, Karen, don't go too far. That's enough." But Karen is oblivious. Her laughter grows louder. Then, suddenly, she raises her hand again. This time, it's not just a silly gesture with her purse. She does what even the most cynical onlookers didn't see coming. She swings her arm and slaps the guard across the face. The sound of the slap echoes through the square. The guard's cheek flinches slightly, but he maintains his balance, standing tall with his dignity intact. The crowd gasps. Someone covers their mouth in shock. Another shouts, "What on earth? Did that just happen?" "Is she serious?" exclaims an elderly tourist with a cane, stepping forward. "This is disgraceful. How dare you act like this in such a sacred place?" Karen, of course, remains true to form. Her eyes sparkle, her face twisted in a smug grin. She dramatically raises her hands and laughs. "Oh, come on," she says loudly. "It's just a joke. He's not even a real person, just a doll in a costume. Relax, everyone." The guard stands motionless. But now, in his eyes, there's a faint shadow of pain, not from the slap, but from the entire incident. He knows his silence is a symbol of strength, and yet doesn't every human deserve to feel? The crowd around Buckingham Palace fills with murmurs and outbursts of outrage. Karen, standing before the motionless guard, seems pleased with herself. Her smug smile all but screams that she believes she's triumphed. But suddenly, the distinct sound of footsteps on the cobblestones breaks the tense silence. A palace security officer approaches the scene with purpose. A tall man in his 40s. His short hair is trimmed neatly, with gray streaks at the temples. Dressed in a crisp black uniform, his face shows no trace of hesitation or leniency, only cold, almost intimidating calm. He stops directly in front of Karen, locking eyes with her. "Ma'am, you are under arrest for disorderly conduct and assaulting a royal guard," he announces, his voice like a hammer strike, clear, loud, and unyielding. Karen, who moments ago was reveling in her perceived victory, suddenly loses all her bravado. Her face turns from rosy to chalky white in an instant. She stumbles backward, nearly tripping over the cobblestones. "But she stammers, her once bold voice reduced to a plea. "It was just a joke. You understand. It was all for fun." The officer, as though he doesn't hear her, takes out a pair of handcuffs. His expression remains impassive, like a stone sculpture, adding to the dramatic weight of the moment. The crowd, which had been quietly observing, suddenly comes alive. At first, scattered claps ring out, but they quickly swell into a roaring round of applause. People shout phrases like, "About time," "She deserves it." Some laugh, others film the scene, and a few simply watch, feeling a deep sense of justice being served. Karen, noticing the crowd has turned against her, begins to panic. Her voice grows shrill, her gestures more erratic. "You don't understand," she screams, clinging to the officer's sleeve. "I'm a tourist. I paid for this tour. I have rights. It was just entertainment." But the officer seems entirely unmoved by her excuses. With steady hands, he methodically secures the handcuffs around her. Plump wrists, giving Karen no opportunity to evade the consequences. At that moment, the guard, who had maintained his silence and stillness throughout the entire incident, slowly raises a hand to adjust his bearskin hat. The subtle motion, almost unnoticeable to some in the crowd, triggers a surge of approval among the spectators. Someone shouts loudly, "Now that's a true professional." Indeed, the guard remains the embodiment of composure and dignity. But in his eyes, invisible to most, there's a subtle glimmer. For a fraction of a second, he turns his head to glance at Karen as she's led away to the sound of applause. His look speaks volumes. Justice has been done. Meanwhile, videos of the incident quickly begin circulating online. Within hours, the story goes viral across all platforms. In the comments, users express their outrage. How could someone be so rude? This guard is a real hero. He deserves a medal for his patience. Others take pleasure in Karen's humiliation. That's what happens when you think you can do whatever you want. Some even joke. They should have sent her on a prison tour for more entertainment. The guard's quiet triumph amid the buzz of approval and excited whispers. The guard resumes his post. His back is straight, his gaze fixed straight ahead. But now, his stance seems to embody not just duty, but quiet pride. As well, in the midst of it all, a young child, sitting on their father's shoulders, suddenly speaks, "Dad, I want to be just like him."